Welcome to the IntelliFran Powertrain for today. If you want to watch any of the previous ones, you can go to YouTube and just search for IntelliFran, and they're all right there. We just keep a library of them. Just scroll through the videos that are there. And they're also on our Facebook page. You can subscribe to us on Facebook, and you'll get notified every time these go up. Excuse me. You'll also get notified every time they go up on YouTube. If you are following us on LinkedIn or on Twitter or Periscope or all the different, I think we're on like 9 different platforms, some of which I don't even think have caught on and will probably die out before we even get a following on them. But the key is be everywhere, be everywhere, be everywhere in your weight loss center. So today we're going to talk about how do you get more and more people to come into your center, and when is enough enough? And by enough is enough, I mean, this applies to ownership, area managers, assistant managers, sales advisors, part-time, full-time, doesn't matter. If you're answering the phone, if you're a clinician, you're doing the treatments, if you are support staff in the center, it all comes down to the numbers. Everyone's got to know what the numbers are. Everyone has a certain level of responsibility. For example, I just hung up with a center in Virginia where we were taking a look at where we are for July. And there are 3 people responsible for different elements of what takes place in the center. So what we did is we used our sales and marketing calculator, and we just plugged in some of the numbers. This calculator is really slick. If you don't have it, if you're not one of our clients, put a comment in, a message, whatever, and we can have a conversation about getting it to you. This calculator is really cool because you just put in the dollar amount you want and like 4 variables: your show rate, your close rate, your average program price, your program product split. Bang, it spits out exactly what needs to be done. So here's what we figured out. And this person that I spoke with is responsible for booking appointments in multiple locations. I even referenced her last week. We meet every week. And we went through the sales and marketing calculator and figured out in one of the locations in particular, not only has she done her job, she's done her job better than she's beat expectations. So the great thing for her is she's now motivated and excited to want to do even more. In fact, she is 2 appointments away from scheduling all the appointments that were expected to be scheduled for the month, and we're only on the 13th. So now she's super motivated, super excited, super jacked to be able to schedule even more appointments, because here's one of the things she's got set up. If you're following these videos at all, you heard me talk about every successful team has a generous compensation plan. She gets a sizable amount of money for any no-show that walks in the door, whether they buy or not. Ownership has purchased, bought, secured, spent money to get a name, an address, a phone number, an email, something of someone who has said, hey, I'm overweight, I'm interested in finding out more about your product. But we already know these people have a tendency to no-show. So she's able to see, oh my gosh, I'm not only hitting my numbers, I'm doing better than the average location, and now I'm jacked and motivated to do even more. So when you know these numbers, you know whether you did a good job, a bad job, or a normal job, or whether you're behind, at, or ahead of schedule. There's nothing left to chance. There's nothing left to be ambiguous. I know as I came up through the management ranks, it always drove me insane when a manager would say, yeah, well, we're going to adjust the goal. I know it's only the 3rd week of the month, but you're tracking ahead, so we're going to make the goal even higher. Go pound salt. You know what? Declare what the goal is at the beginning of the month, and when I hit it and achieve it, reward me for it. If you lowball the goal, that's your problem. I'm doing what you're asking me to do, but don't change the strategy halfway through. Let's agree, let's declare this is how many activities I have to engage in. This is the end result of what I need to do. So let me talk about how you should be setting up some goals, some parameters. Everyone in the center should understand that some type of marketing and advertising is being done. I don't care if it's someone walking around with a sandwich board, or you're passing out flyers, or you just did a $100,000 TV buy, or you've got big double truck ads, the Stadia is running in some of your local newspapers, you got a big radio buy going on, or you got a crazy, insane pay-per-click program going on, or your Facebook, other social media is just on fire, or people are just telling everyone else about it. There's some type of advertising and marketing taking place. That can be quantified. The results, the responses to that advertising can be quantified. Let's call that reach. From just the number of people that we reach, or you can call it impressions, whatever you want to call it. We're not going to overly define some of these things. From there, then, what we're creating is some point of contact. Someone's either going to call us, or they're going to walk into your location, or they're going to go online, and they are going to submit a form or schedule an appointment for them to come in. Then they're either going to show or not show. If they show, they're going to buy. If they buy, they're going to buy at a certain dollar volume, a certain dollar level. Those are the variables. Those are the things that we can't control whether someone responds. We can control that we have the right message. We can't control whether someone shows up or not, or books an appointment, but we can control what we say over the phone. We can't control if someone walks in the door or not, but we can control what we say when they walk in the door. And we can't control whether they buy or not, but we can control the things we say in our presentation, our ability to overcome objections and close again, and that we may not be able to control whether they have the money or not, but as ownership, we can control whether we have generous financing terms available to make up for those people that maybe don't have the cashola available to do the deal. So as an owner, an area manager, a manager, assistant manager, a sales advisor, no matter what my role is, all along the line here, things have to be quantified. Now, here's what the sales and marketing calculator does. This is what we just did with the center in Virginia. We figured out for them in a specific period of time to have $25,000 in program sales, we need to have about 1,400 reaches. Somehow, some way, 1,400 people need to be touched. Whether it's phone calls, text messaging, email, Facebook advertising, pay-per-click programs, radio, television, newspaper, one way or another, we have to have about 1,500 people have to be somehow connected. And when we walk through those numbers, we also figured out those 1,400 people need to somehow turn into about 36 appointments. And knowing what our show rate is for that specific time period that we're talking about, we only have to have about 22 of those people walk through the door and then sell the number of people that we need, because our program price is high enough to offset all of that. So something's got to give. Either that advertising's being run and people are responding in the way they should, or they aren't. If they aren't, we need to take a look at that. But if they are and they're not scheduling appointments, we need to take a look at why. But if they are and they're not showing up in the measures and doses that they should be showing up, we need to examine that. And if they are showing up and they're not buying, we need to figure out what the hurdle is, what's getting in the way of these people enrolling in the program. Or if they say they want to buy, but a huge percentage of them maybe don't have the money, we got to figure out, do we have the tools and the processes in place to secure that sale one way or another? All along the way, you have the ability to influence this. If you are one of those staffers who say, well, I can't control it, it's out of my hands, I can't do anything about it, what am I supposed to do if they don't have any money? These are usually the same people who say, hey, if you can get them here, I can sell them. Well, pick one of these. If we can get them in the door and you can sell them, but when you don't sell them, it's not your fault. No, pick one. You're not that good. There's some skill sets that are in there. So let's talk about some of the things that are influenced by this. I want to tell you a quick anecdote. No matter what you think, and this is for the non-ownership watching this, if you are an area manager, a staffer, a sales advisor, if you are coming up short of what the goal is and your ownership is saying to you, we need to do X, Y, and Z, have some blind faith that they know exactly what they're talking about. Don't assume they don't know what the solution is. In fact, I will invite you to assume, just for the moment, that everything they're saying is completely accurate. Do exactly what they recommend that you do with enthusiasm and energy and electricity to help make up for whatever that schism is. Wherever you're coming up short, if they're giving you guidance to do it, do it. I had the luxury of working for two guys that made over $100 million in this business. You've heard me reference them before. I looked at it this way. I got paid to sit in a room with them and take notes where they spilled their guts on how they made $100 million doing exactly what they were asking me to do. I can't find a better way to learn than that. So let me get this straight. I'm not going to challenge you. In fact, my attitude, and I invite you to have the same thing if you're non-ownership. And even if you're ownership and you're part of a franchise somewhere, you may want to think about it this way. Until you have more money in your bank account than the person who is guiding you has in their bank account, shut your big pie hole and do what they recommend. In fact, one guy I worked for in particular, I used to just have blind faith. I didn't care if the ideas were 20 years old. In my mind, I would somehow modify them for today's technologies, for today's consumer behavior. But I took it for what it was worth, and I modified it, and I made it work. I never questioned it. In fact, when I deep down would fight something and think, oh man, this guy does not know what he's talking about, I would think to myself, this dude still has about $59.5 million more in the bank than I do right now. I'm going to do what he recommends. I'm going to follow those recommendations. I'm going to follow that guidance. And as a sales advisor, an assistant manager, a manager, an area manager, I invite you to do the same thing with your ownership. Somehow they know a little bit more about what's going on than maybe you do. And if not, maybe you're getting the results and you don't even have to have those conversations. So the reason I bring this up is when your ownership comes to you and says, we have a disconnect between the number of people seeing our ads and the number of people responding, you got to figure out what that problem is. We may even have the solution. Not always, but more often than not. And if people are responding and they're booking appointments and not showing up, I can guarantee you why they're not showing up. There's a problem with the people that are engaging with them one way or the other. It's a problem with your confirmation process. It's a problem with your scheduling process or your hours or your protocol. I mean, let's just look at hours for a minute. I'm going to tell you hands down the centers that are the most successful are, by far, no question, has been for decades, open 8 or 9 a.m. in the morning until 7 or 8 at night, Monday through Friday, and 9 to sometime in the middle of the afternoon on Saturday. Plain and simple. If your patients, clients, or members need a scorecard to figure out when you're open and what days you're available, you've got a problem already. That's a conversation for another day. There is a way around that in the short term until you build up your traffic to be able to be there with greater frequency. But it's got to be convenient to the prospect, to your customer, your client, your patient, your member. So if there's a problem with the number of people scheduling versus the number of people that should have shown up, and that sales calculator tells you exactly how many people should have shown up, there's a solution to that. Training is needed. Guidance is needed. Role-playing is needed. Don't be so arrogant as to think you're doing everything perfect. And let me take it one step further. Don't whine, moan, and complain, and I don't care what role you have in the center. Well, I tried that. Or I did that a couple of times. It didn't work. You know what? I don't want to hear it. Do it 10 times. Do it 20 times. Then tell me whether it worked or not. Tell your ownership whether it worked or not. Ownership, you do it yourself 10 or 20 times. Then tell your staff, your area manager, staffer, whether it worked or not. It's not until you do that something 10 or 20 times are you really going to, in fact, in some environments, it's 100 times or 1,000 times until you can make a judgment call on it. I just had a meeting last week with someone, hands down, was telling me something didn't work. Didn't like it. It was a bad idea. I'm like, good God. Wait until you've done this at least 10 times. And I don't care if it blows up in your face the first 5 times, because if it works out the next 5 times, you're going to tell me what a genius you are. She knows who she is. I say this with love in my heart. But that's the reality of how this works. So suck it up, Buttercup. If the metrics aren't there, you need some guidance. You need some extra training. You need a better solution. But at the same time, you need to track your numbers. I would tell you a story. I remember going into a location in eastern Pennsylvania. First words out of their mouth, oh my God, we're having a closing problem. We have a close rate problem. We cannot overcome the spouse objection. We cannot overcome the money objection. We're getting killed by this. What can you do to help us? Well, I'm not one of those show up and throw up people. Well, I'm a genius at closing the sale on the husband and the spouse. Let me tell you how you overcome this. First thing I want to do is check the math. And we went through and I said, let's look at the last 30 days, last 60 days, last 90 days. Their close rate was 85% overall. I don't care about the people they couldn't overcome. They were getting 5% more sales than they were really entitled to. In fact, I had to give them the bad news. Brace yourself for a correction. Potentially, your close rate may drop to 75% for a while, because the best any center can really hope for, if you're aggressively marketing, you're aggressively engaged with your community, you're aggressively generating exposures and reaches and impressions and everything else, is about an 80% close rate. So I had to tell them, you're doing just fine. Well, what ideas do you have for overcoming the spouse and the husband, the spouse and the money objection? Well, I'll give you those, but understand, you are not having a problem with those. Your math is showing your problem is, there is no problem. You're closing what you need to be closing. Your expectations are exceeding what the industry does. And that's fine. If you want to try to have a 90% close rate, hey, write me, mail me, text me, let me know when you figured that one out, because no one's cracked that code in the 30 years, almost 30 years I've been doing this. So, know your math, know your metrics, know what's going on. But declare at the beginning of the month. Everyone should know exactly what needs to take place. And the centers we work with all week this week, we're taking a temperature of exactly where we are for the month of July. And with the ownership, we're figuring out what do we need to do for August, September, October, November, and December, so we can see how we're going to finish out for the rest of the year. Where are our weak areas? Do we need to do a post-mortem on advertising? Do we need to get a better feel for, hey, ads may have worked one way for, in some cases, for years. And as the conversation I had with a very talented owner this morning, sometimes some markets switch from traditional media to digital media. I've seen it happen as little as 6 months, where there is a sea change, where people just quit looking in the newspaper, quit responding to direct mail, quit responding to radio, quit paying attention to TV, and all of a sudden everything switches over to digital. That may be going on in your market. You never know. We have one location where that's exactly what happened. They were beating their head against the wall, trying to figure out, why isn't this working? We switched everything over to digital, and bang, sales up over 20% almost immediately, and they've continued that. So nothing we did. We just helped them come to that conclusion and gave them the right direction where we could influence it, and they secured guidance from people outside of us that could help expedite it. So know your math, have a declaration, know what you're doing. This needs to be communicated. Weekly meetings, staff meetings, constant communication between ownership and the staff, having a generous compensation plan, all of those things, we can help you with those things if you want to explore it. As we've noted time and time again, we can't help everybody. Only about a third of the people that reach out to us to have a conversation are we realistically able to help. 1/3 are already hitting the metrics. They're like that center I talked about. Their close rates are already at their show rates, their close rates, their cost per thousand, their cost per lead, their cost per client acquisition are all where it ought to be. Their profitability is where it should be. We can't help move them forward. Other people fix us. We want you to just do it remotely. We can't help that. But if you are actively engaged in your business, no matter what your role is in the center, and you're trying to save lives and make money doing this, and you're looking for some guidance to fine-tune your advertising, maybe to embrace social media, to get your show rates up, to book more appointments, get your show rates up, get your close rates up, have the sales tools available to you and the consumer tools available to you to maximize cash flow and have the most profitable location you possibly can, we may be in the cards for you. If you want to get more information, send us a send message. Some of you are watching this on YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever the source is. Find some way to message us. If it's not there, you can text us at 330-548-5176. You can email us at help@intellifran.com. Follow us on Facebook. you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and get these updates on a regular basis. Have a great week. We're going to be doing these powertrains from on the road next week. We are, at least this guy's a traveling road show next week. So we will connect with you for the powertrains next Tuesday and next Thursday, and we'll see you each morning as we normally do. Have a great day.